things to you because I know when I was growing up, Paul was all I would read. I mean, the other apostles and stuff, it just seemed like it was some outdated stuff because all of a sudden, Lord died, went to heaven, and then here's Paul, you know, and the other apostles. And I saw this on somebody's blogger the other day, and it was the same thing that I had grown up thinking. The other apostles weren't getting it about this whole new thing of grace. So the Lord had to send Paul to set the apostles straight and build the church, when the Lord had already promised Peter and told Peter that on Peter he would build the church. On Peter's faith would be the rock of the church. What, did the Lord go to heaven and change his mind? Did he make a mistake? No, because Paul came on the scene and was teaching blasphemous doctrines. Paul was a wolf in sheep's clothing. He was Satan entering into the early church and dividing and distorting and manipulating it. And how many people can see that today? A handful. A minority, as usual. Only a minority will ever grasp the truths of anything. Because as always, as Israel of old, as Israel of now, the majority is in errors and idol worship. In most of the churches today, you can't walk into them and listen to one sermon without hearing them quote Paul. Paul said this. Paul said that. Really? What's the Lord say? Does anybody ever quote Yahushua? Sometimes they'll amuse you and read something Yahushua said, but most of the time it's one glorifying Paul after the next. It's idol worship. They idolize Paul. They don't realize they're doing it. And so the only thing that's just been consistent over the last several years that I have stood strong on, that I cannot be moved on, are the things the Lord himself teaches me. And he always confirms himself, folks. He doesn't just talk to me. He talks to a lot of people. And he always confirms himself in very many ways. And all you have to do is pray and ask the Lord, is she telling the truth? Is she of you? You know, don't listen to me. Take it to the Lord. You know, in Matthew 26, Yeshua was betrayed during the Feast of Passover. He wasn't celebrating Easter. You have a great article on where the churches went wrong, the greatest deception of the ages. And you can go to SherryTalkRadio.com and click on my articles link. And it talks about all these pagan traditions that replaced the Lord's appointed times with us. Because most churches today no longer even celebrate Passover. And I don't know how they get by with this. I mean, for all these thousands, if God is the same yesterday and today and forever, he's the same before he came and he's the same after he comes, why is it we somehow think for 2,000 years in the church age, that we've called it the church age, that all of a sudden we don't have to celebrate any of these feasts? We've been given the law of grace. We don't have to celebrate his feasts anymore under the law of grace. It's nothing but a law of sin. There is no law of grace. Grace was something the Lord gave to us. He gives to his people. There is no law of grace that replaced celebrating his appointed times with us. Do you see where the deceptions and the lies come in? Because you can read in Revelation during the millennial reign, we're still practicing and honoring his appointed times with us, because those who refuse to go up to Jerusalem once a year, their nations will be withheld rain. Okay, so why are we celebrating these appointed times for the Lord during the millennial reign, and we're not doing it now? If he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, that means continuity, folks. There's no 2000 hiccup here where all of a sudden we get a license to sit on our couches and do nothing. That's part of having evidence of your faith. James says faith without works is dead. Faith without evidence that you're his is dead. What's the evidence? The evidence is that we are keeping his appointed times and we are honoring his Sabbath day. I'm not even going to get into the other laws of Leviticus. Leviticus was broken up. The Mosaic laws was broken up into two areas. We had the ceremonial laws, and you had the moral laws. And the moral laws covered everything from morality to just everyday living, economics and crime and things like that. Covered everything like everyday community-type living. The moral laws covered all of the sacrifices that had to be made for certain sins, certain Sabbaths, certain whatevers. Okay? All that was done away with. When the Lord died on the cross and rose again 3 days later, He accomplished and fulfilled the ceremonial laws. But what still stands today is the moral laws. And if we were living under these moral laws, nobody would be in debt. We'd have to be in a mountain somewhere because usury is against the Lord's laws. And of course, these laws will never be fulfilled, a perfect community type living under the Lord's laws, until He returns and establishes millennial reign. And then we will see all of this come into effect. He will establish His perfect law, His Torah, and that is the one we will live under during the millennial reign. So don't you think, now there's a lot of the law we're supposed to still be keeping and living? The church, we never did away with it. He didn't do away with it. The church did. Satan did. Satan said, oh, no. I got to get in there. I got to get my hands in this. It's too good to pass up. I got to deceive all these people, lead Christianity astray for 2,000 years, and get as many as I can to actually not even know who or what they're worshiping. They'll worship me. I'm going to coerce them into worshiping me. They won't even know it. And that was his game plan. That's exactly what he did. Because if you're worshiping the Jesus of the Bible, hello, that's Satan's name. The Lord's name is Yahushua. Okay? And you'll see when the Antichrist comes, it's coming in the name of Jesus Christ. And you'll see that Christ itself is just an office. He'll come as the Christ. The church will see him and adopt him as Jesus Christ. He may come as Jesus. I've seen the name Jesus all over the Bible codes. Because when Michelangelo painted the portrait of Jesus, he painted a picture of Satan. That was Satan he painted. And so the churches adopted this picture as Jesus. And you can walk into a lot of them today and see this picture of Jesus hanging on their walls. Different manifestations of the pictures of Michelangelo painted of Satan, you'll see hanging in these church walls. Now, don't you think that's like the ultimate blasphemy? The Lord has told me that most of the churches today are Satan's churches. They're not His. They've got Satan hanging up them. They've got his pictures hanging up. Then they go every Sunday and start, oh, I love you, Jesus. We worship you, Jesus. They sing to Jesus. They profess with their lips that they love Him and they follow Him. And they don't have 2 hoots of intelligence to even figure out or realize or find out from the Lord Himself if they're really walking in His ways. And they sit there with a big picture of Satan above the altar of the church, behind the pastor or the pulpit, or on the front of their bulletins that they pass out. And we've all seen the Garden of Gethsemane one, or where Satan's holding a little lamb in his arm. That's not the Son of God, folks. You've been fooled. You've been deceived by one of the best, Satan himself. He is the best. He's very, very good. And he's gotten all of you. Not all of you. Send some emails. I wasn't deceived. Majority. There's always been a remnant that has not bowed their knee to Satan. Another name for Satan is Baal. And you know what another name for Baal is? Lord. We have a habit of calling him Lord. I know I do. Because I've done it for so many years. Lord is a title. And when you actually say Lord, you're actually calling on Baal. And so we have to train ourselves, and I have to do this too, because you'll see me slip up all the time, to just say His name, Yahushua. Our Messiah is Yahushua. The Father's name is Yahweh. They took His name out of the Bible, and they replaced His name with the term God. It's a generic term. It's a generic term. God. That's not a name. The Lord and the Father want us to call them by their names. The Father's name is Yahweh. The Son of God is Yahushua.